We're in a day and time where things are so diverse and difficult for many people. I have been going through so many diverse temptations, trials, and traumas that when you try to come out or you're heading on your way out, it can so overwhelm you. Your parts in life that are broken, those things are the hardest parts to try to mend fences with. When you've ruined your own self-esteem, maybe, or when you've ruined your own reputation, when you've ruined your track record, when you've hurt other people, as you begin to turn around and change your life, you may come against so many kinds of obstacles. One, it will be if people who accept you that you get employed by, or in other instances, it will be the very people that you love so dearly, whether or not they'll accept you, trust you, believe in you again. And that can be so disappointing and discouraging. So what I'm learning about my life is God is the only inner strength that I'm able to hold on to and carry. But what God is doing is when you're praying and asking God to help you, you know what ends up happening is that it will be a situation that you'll face maybe by prayer or whatever. Well, I'm talking about by prayer. I shouldn't say whatever. You may be praying to God to ask you for help and change something, and you may see nothing changing, nothing. You may say, well, this ain't gonna work. It must not gonna be a place. It's probably not something that's gonna change and all that kind of thing. You can find discouragement, and discouragement is also kind of a killer. It can put you in depression and stress. So, you know, what I'm just putting out here right now is just a little bit of what I'm learning about this time. Last night I had to just raise my hand in total weakness. I couldn't even raise it. I just had my hand up and I was just praying over my circumstances. And I mean, when I say I got circumstances, I'm talking about children, I'm talking about marriage, I'm talking about work, and there's things that just seem like they're not changing. But you gotta keep praising God, being thankful and prayerful to God, and then keeping faith and still speaking God's word over your life. Like, you know, people heard the famous ones like, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But when it looks like all the weapons are prospering, you still have to speak these words over your life. It's very difficult. I was asking God just last night, I said, Lord, why ain't you doing something? You know, it's okay to ask God that. He understands. Why are you allowing the people who are sincere and righteous to just crumble? And why are the people who, whether they are wicked or maybe they're his children and love him, but they carry their own doctrines and belief systems and they congregate with others who agree in that same thing? And when you look at it as a whole, or as a corporately, those kind of people hurt the righteous, like, you know, you got those humble sheep in the church, and then you got the billy goats in the church. And it's like that in life. It doesn't matter where you are. You'll find that same thing in every plateau of life. You always have a billy goat, and you always have the sheep, you know. But you got to remember, sheep grow into rams, and so you're able to fight. But sheep, generally, the concept of a sheep is, you know, they're meek, they're humble, and they're not like billy goats. Billy goats fight off top. And some people don't have that inner strength to just deal with all the fights they have to go through. But here's my ending. It's okay to be a sheep. It's okay to be humble. Some people will billy goat you to death. When you talk to them, they're the kind of people that you can't work with. They're the kind of people who are, I want to say, will never accept apologies. There's a word for it that's on the tip of my tongue, but they're unmerciful in some ways. There are people who are cruel in some ways. There's people who are unaccepting, uncaring. There are people who are greedy and proud and vicious and malicious, and who only care to uplift themselves and to stomp on anything that offends or will take away from their own power. There's people who are so concerned with their own reputations and names that they will do anything and a align with anyone who help promote their names and statuses. And many sheep aren't that way. They just live life in a very simple way, or they're not those who fight to do those kinds of things. So you got to remember that when you are dealing with your battles. You have to remember that when you're dealing with people who are irreconcilable in the world. They just refuse to be reconciled. They refuse to capitulate. They refuse to open up dialogue. They refuse to treat you differently than what they would treat someone who doesn't deserve a crumb off your table. All those things can be discouraging, but I'm here today to tell you that I'm a walking example of that. People know me know I come from the street, been to prisons. I've been high in my highs, and then I've been low in my lows. I failed at many things. I told my daughter once, what makes me an awesome dad? I said, because in all of my failures and mistakes, I always try again. And each time I fall into some mistake, I learn from that and grow to the next place and the next place. You gotta keep growing. And you need to be around people who support your growth and can acknowledge it and say, you know what? You've grown here, 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 and here. If they keep you down by only accepting what you've done in the past and they define you by that, those people will be a discouragement. Depression will come in, as I brought up in the beginning. Stress will come in. You may lose faith and you may lose hope. So, what I'm learning again is keep your faith. Keep speaking God's word over you. The only way you're going to do that is if you're reading it. If you know any ministers out there, if you know any pastors, if you know any Christian laymen out there, and they're not reading God's word, you can tell by the character and the way that they talk, post, act, and speak. But when you submerge yourself in His word, on your private time, when you're bored, when you don't feel like it, it constantly washes you. And then as you're reading His word, you're drawn to speak that word over yourself and your family. You're drawn to speak that word over the enemy, the principalities in the air and on the earth. When you worship and you praise and you pray together, you actually will save your family. People don't seem to believe that today. A lot of people seem to believe that, I made this choice, this is what it is. If you don't like it, so what? I don't believe in you, this, that, and the other. Look, God called us to be reconciled. Any of you right now that have a different doctrine, I call it the toxic gospel of eliminate, eradicate, and disseminate all failures in my life. And all of the, look, if you are so sanctified and holy, then you ain't doing nothing wrong. And you're blessing your whole entire family, you're superwoman and man, and you don't need Jesus. But from what I heard tell, we're all far short of the glory of God. And all of us deserve death. Every single one of us. So I'm speaking to the people that have a meek and troubled hearts, the ones that are loving and looking and praying and things ain't changing. Keep going. Keep going with it. Even after you hear this, even after you pray, and like 20 minutes later, you feel like I can be shaking, missing my family so much, missing my children so much, missing my healed or my connected help me so much, missing my company, the things and the businesses I had, and the music I used to make and everything. Whatever the case, I hope the example that I'm giving you today will just encourage you for today. I'm not the most elegant speaker. I'm not the put together pastor or elder or OG, but I know what I'm talking about. And it's time to make a difference. So have a good one. Stay encouraged. Know that the sufferings you're going through, other people are going through the same suffering. What you're missing, how you feel at nighttime, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to not be able to sleep, to always think about the person you love, to reach out and they don't respond, to pray for and it doesn't seem like a change is coming. This is your valid time. This is your valid time. But God is faithful. He won't leave you there. You're just growing in it. So keep growing.